Okay, so if we continue on, and I'm looking on page 428, this is called the pass array demonstration. So if I look at that one, so here we've got a void main, we've got a constant of array size 4. Here we've got an array we're going to call numbers, and it's going to have 4 elements in it. And here I've got get values numbers. Now, notice this isn't italicized, so that means it is a static method within this method, I should say within this class. So it's down here as a private static void get values. Now look, I am passing numbers. What is numbers? That's the array. I'm actually passing the entire array to this method down here. So notice I've got int, and it's got the left and square bracket array. And so now I have access to the entire array in this method. So down here I basically got a scanner, enter a series of array length numbers. So look at that. There I'm saying array.length. So it doesn't matter. We don't have to use the constant. We just can use the length. So if up here I change this constant to, let's say, 6, it will automatically reflect 6 down here inside the method. So that's kind of a good coding practice. And then I go ahead and go through the array with a for loop, and there I'm going to go ahead and sys out enter a number, boom, boom, boom. So now I get the values, okay? So once I get them, I go ahead and say, here are the numbers you entered, and I say show array. Again, it's italicized. It should be another method that is static within this class, and sure enough there's a show array. I pass in the same array, and there it basically is going to go through the array.length. Now that's another thing I want you to look at. It says int index equals 0, so I'm initializing an index equal to 0, and while the index is less than the array.length, again, I don't have to use a hard fast number. I don't have to use the constant. I just use the length of the array, which is the number of elements. So it doesn't matter what, I could pass in a 500 element, or I could pass in a 2 element. It's going to work just fine every time. So if we go ahead and run this guy, let me save it first. There we go. So I save it, run as Java application, and I go ahead and say enter a number. We'll say 10, we'll say 15, we'll say 20, 25, and it says here are the numbers you just entered: 10, 15, 20, 25. Okay. So we can pass arrays to other. So getting back to our objects, our classes, where we basically then are getting to OO, I can actually pass an array back and forth between classes. Okay, I'm going to see that here in a little bit. So let's take a look at the sales data, which is basically what that's all about. So I look at the sales data, and I believe there is sales that goes along with this, and yes. So here I've got sales. It's a void main, and then I've got a final 1 week is equal to 7, and I say double sales. So I've basically created an array called sales, and it basically has 7 elements. And then I've got get value sales, and so I come down here, I should have a get value. So here's that same exact type of situation. I've passed in a double array, so it's a double data type, and it's an array, so it's my open the square brackets, and again here's the array.length. So same thing as we just saw a few minutes ago, except now I've got sales data, and that's my sales data class, and I'm creating a dollar object from that. I'm instantiating it as a new week. Sorry, got ahead of myself. So it's sales data week. So week is the object, and I'm instantiating it as a new sales data, and I'm passing in sales. What is sales? That's my array. So I'm passing array to this object. So I've got a decimal format dollar, so I've got a decimal format class. I'm creating a dollar object from that. We've seen that before, so no big deal. And then I've got a J option pane. No, the total sales were dollar sign, dollar format, get week, get total. So here's my week. There's probably a get total over here. So there's a get total. Yep. And looks like it's going to do. So it's using the array. Okay. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at this class object. So there I've got. Here's my sales data, and I've got private double sales. Notice it's got the open and open left and right print square brackets, so it's an array. And then I've got public sales data, so here's sales data up here. So this is my constant, and in the constant, the signature is saying I'm expecting a double array, and I'm going to call it S. So down here it says sales. What is sales? That's the array. That's my instance variable array. Is going to be equal to new double s dot length. So what is going on there? Well, basically here's what's going on. I'm making sales have the same number of elements as the s array that's being passed into it. Okay? So the array that's being passed in, sales and the other array will have the same number of elements. And then it's, because notice I just declared, I didn't instantiate this array. So here's where I declare it, and here's where I instantiate it. And then I say for int index equals 0, while the index is less than or equal to, or less than the length of the array, s array. Every time I go through, I'm going to increase the index by 1. I say sales index is equal to s index. So really all this constant does is we pass in an array, and I take each and every element of that array and copy it into the other elements. When we get done with this for loop, the S array and the sales array are going to be equal. They're going to be identical. Whatever's in the 0 indexes will be in the 0 index over here, 1 index, 2 index, so on and so forth. So that's all that constructor is doing. Then I've got get total, and that says double total. So here we've got a local variable with inside this method, initializing to 0, and then I'm saying for int index equals 0 index while it's less than the sales dot length, number of elements in that array. And every time I go through this array, I'm going to increase the index by 1. I say total plus equals sales index. So it's going to go through each element of the array and add it to total. When we get done, we say return total because we have a double up here, so it's expecting it's expecting a double to be returned. And there we have it. Get average, we take the get, so now this is kind of neat because I'm saying return get total. So it's calling this get total and then divide it by the sales.length. What is sales.length? That's the number of elements in the array. So if I add all those elements together and then divide by the number of elements, it gives me the average. Get highest. That's kind of a neat one because now I've created a local variable within this method called highest, and it's equal to sales 0. So what it's doing is it's grabbing the very first element of sales and putting it into this variable. And now I've got a for loop. Again, sales.length. I'm going to go through it the number of times of the elements. And if the sales index, so if the index is greater than the highest, then I'm going to make highest equal to that one. Okay, so it's kind of neat. So I start with the very first element. I check the next element. If it's higher than this one, I'm going to make this one the highest. I read the next one. If it's higher than this one, same thing. So when I get done, whatever's in highest is going to be the highest number, the greatest number, I should say the largest number in that array. Same thing for get lowest. Instead of checking to see if it's higher than, I check to see if it's lower than. If it is, when I get through, lowest will have the lowest, the smallest number in that array. Okay, so not too bad. So over here, I can grab the total, get average, get highest, get lowest. So not too bad. So if I go ahead and run this, so I'm going to go ahead and run sales, not sales data because it doesn't have a void main. And it comes up and it's going to say into the sales for day one. I'm going to say $500. Sales 2 is $600, $700, $800, $900, and then 200 because it's Saturday, and Sunday we only had $100. So the total sales were 3,800. The average sales were 542.86. Highest sales were 900. Lowest sales were 100. So pretty cool stuff. Okay, and we're using a class, we're using an object, and we're passing back and forth arrays to that. Except in this case here, we passed the array, but we created our own array and basically kind of dealt with that. Because that way there we could keep our array local. And again, I'm kind of trying to explain why we did that. That way there, when we basically keep going back to that array, we know that those numbers are stagnant, because if we keep going back to the other one, the array numbers and things may have changed, but we always know that in our class, our object, the numbers are stagnant from the last time we left them. Okay, so pretty cool stuff there, passing back and forth, not too bad. The grader, if you want to go through that grader, it's kind of a good one. It kind of does the same thing as what we just talked about in sales. Returning arrays from methods, we can do that as well. Let's take a quick look at that. It's the return array. So here I have my main, and I say values.get equal get array. So come down here to get array. So look at this. I've got a double, left and right, square bracket, empty, values. So I've declared an array, but I haven't really instantiated it yet. And I say values equal. So here's values, and it's equal to get array. So I come down here. So here I am. I say double array is equal to, now this is another thing we do. We can if we use these left and right braces, I can kind of not only instantiate it, but I can actually put data in it in one line of code. So double array equals boom. So now when I get done here, notice how many elements are in this array? Well, it looks like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a 5-element array. I don't have to say 5. All I got to do is put those values inside of the braces, and it automatically creates an array of that numeric value. And then I say return that array, so when I come back after this line, I have an array that's filled with data. This is 4 double num values. Now, this is kind of going back to the for loop that we talked about in previous chapters. Here I'm saying, I'm not doing the index, I'm not doing any of that, I'm just saying for double num, so I'm creating a value or a variable called num, and it's a double data type. And I'm saying values. What is values? That is an array. So this is saying go through this array one element at a time and take each element and put it into this variable called num. Okay, that's all it's saying right there. So here's my array. Here's my new variable. Every time, so the first time through this, it's going to grab the 0 element and put it in num. So when I say print num plus, it looks like maybe a space, next time through, values automatically increases or goes to the number 1 element, it puts that in num, it prints that. Next time through, it grabs the 2 element, puts it in there, the 3 element, and the 4 element. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. So If we go ahead and run this guy, boom. So it